You're listening to Bookish Flights, a great place to share your love of books and find your next favorite. If you're a fan too, don't forget to leave a review, 5-star rating, and share with your friends. I'm Jackie Lentz, hostess of Jackie Just Chatters. At my storytelling podcast, you'll hear whimsical tales from ordinary people and how beauty can be found in regular life. You can find me at my website, www.jacquilents.com. What's your story?
In today's episode, I am chatting with Sonia Moore. Sonia was born and raised in the Show Me state. She is a Gen Xer with a Dolly Parton wig personality. A former elementary teacher, current adult English language teacher, Jill of all trades, creative, and best darn auntie on the planet. Sonia is a lover of vintage things, cozy cottages, hygge, baking breads, spending time with her fella, and of course, a good book. She is a delightful blend of family, diverse interests, and the love of storytelling. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so glad to have you here this morning. Well, I feel like you have done a great job here with your bio. Most often, my first question is, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are? Because I feel like we are so much more than our bio, but we learned so much about you in this bio.
I blame Jackie Lentz for that. She helped me write it. So she was like, you need a good bio. It's, sometimes it's difficult to talk about yourself. We're so inclined to be descriptive of everything else in our worlds, but it's hard to look inside and say, okay, who am I really?
Yeah. Okay, Jackie, I might be coming to you too, because my bio is not, it might need a little life to it.
Yeah, the Dolly Parton wig was her idea.
Can you tell us about this Dolly Parton wig personality?
Well, I think it comes a lot from, I don't know, maybe my sense of humor, or I'm a little sassy, I guess. And because I'm from Missouri and she's from Michigan, she claims that I'm Southern, which I am not, because Missouri is not Southern. But people will argue that I used to do theater. I've done burlesque, so I guess that's where that kind of comes from. I don't know. I think that's a compliment. I love Dolly Parton, and if I'm going to be any part, a wig is good. So
yes, I totally agree. I'm a big Dolly Parton fan over here. So
yeah.
Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Oh, goodness. Well, as my bio said, I hate to start off with my profession because, we are so much more than our profession. But, I've been a teacher since I was 18 years old. So, not saying I'm a teacher is really difficult. And I have learned that I'm a teacher far beyond the classroom. I teach a lot of different things to different people. And I'm a bibliophile. I love books. I always have. I grew up in a small town. I moved to the big city, a little bit like, Mary Tyler Moore. I didn't throw my hat in the air, but, and I just kind of showed my age. But I back to a small town. I don't know. I love so many things. I have so many interests. It's really hard for me to pinpoint when I'm describing myself. I just really try to, my best philosophy is just, we have such a short life, just try to live it to the fullest and enjoy and embrace as much as we possibly can.
Yeah. And to your point about being a teacher, in and out of the classroom, it's interesting because I feel like I can tell when I'm interviewing a teacher in the way they show up to their episodes, like the preparedness. I think it's just these skills that you are taught as a teacher that I was not taught as a physical therapist. So I do not show up the same if I'm being interviewed. And so I'm saying this in a great way. It is such a good thing. But I can tell, when I have the teacher on, just out of the level of commitment and what they have prepared to come on the show.
Well, they're going to be early. They're going to have something to drink because they're used to long times. They have already went to the bathroom because teachers don't get to do that. And they will have the book. Yes, that's very true. But I think that's also something I'm very thankful for. I was an elementary teacher for 20 years in public school. And once I got out of public school teaching, I worked other jobs, and I really feel like that gave me a skill that was, an asset to whatever I was doing. So I agree. I mean, I can always tell too. I do different things when I'm doing either a book journaling class, or if I'm doing any other sort of training. I can tell when the teachers show up, because they have their pens in their little pockets, and they have all their little supplies, and they have their big Stanley cups or their big drinks. And I was like, you're a teacher, aren't you?
You can probably pick it up even better than I can, because you're in it.
Oh, I can smell it. As soon as they walk in the room, I'm like, that's a teacher.
That's really funny. So now, you've kind of mentioned it already. You have an amazing book journal, and Sonia and I met on another podcast through our friend Jackie, and she was showing me these book journals that she's made. Can you tell us about that?
In 2020, when the world was in chaos, needed something creative to do. I'm a naturally creative. I always have been since childhood. And I fell into the bullet journaling world, on watching it on YouTube and Instagram and whatnot. And I thought, oh, I love this. I'm a teacher. I love a lesson plan. I love having something set up with that's cute. I used to color code my lesson plans. So I was like, oh, this would be so fun. And I wasn't teaching anymore. I wasn't teaching at all at that time. And I started creating this bullet journal, and I started in April, which bothered me because I wanted to start in January, but whatever. And so I started in April, and I was just living for it. And I did it in April, and then I just burnt out in October. And I was like, I'm not using this. I'm putting all this time and creativity into this calendar that I'm absolutely not using, that I don't have a purpose for. So I was really bummed, because I thought, oh, I'll do this and it'll be so fun. This is just not for me. It's just some creative aspects are just not in my ministry. So it's like, this one's not it.
Okay.
And I went a couple of months, and I just kind of fell into a couple of book journaling people, and there's not a lot of that out there. And I thought, the question mark went above my head, and I said, okay. And I watched a couple, and I thought, this I would get something out of. Why didn't I think of this? My kids kept book journals. We did book journaling all the time. It just wasn't like that sort of thing. And I thought, okay, first of all, I have the journal, because I didn't last in the bullet journal community. They threw me out. And so I was like, I'll give this a try, and I'll just go slow. I read one whole book that started in January, read one whole book, Anne of Green Gables. And I absolutely loved the experience of journaling about it, because it was like almost rereading the book again.
Yeah.
And being able to take my creative side and make the page tie into the book it lit me up. And I thought, let's see how this goes. Will this be the bullet journal, part 2? And I finished the book from beginning to end, not necessarily on time, because I don't ever finish it on time. I'm still trying to finish my 2023 book. I put so much art into it. It's hard to get finished.
Yeah.
But I finished and completed the book and said, wow, I love this. So I did it in 2022 and still continuing in 2023.
Wow. What a mix of your bibliophile world and then your creative brain. And it kind of blends those two together beautifully.
Yes. I taught a book journaling class at our local bookstore, Neighborhood Reads here. And that's one of the things I told them. I said, if you are I grasped to this because I'm a creative, and I love art, and I love media. As far as artwork goes, like, I have always loved collaging. I have always loved mixed media. But I've also dabbled in other things. I've painted, I've sketched, I've done all these things, and I'm not great. When I say this, I'm not great. And this is one of the things that's great about book journaling, is because it is yours and personal, you don't have to share it if you don't want to. So it's just a time to be creative, and it doesn't have to be a masterpiece. You don't have to sell it to someone. It's just for you. Yeah. It's for your reflection. It's like a diary.
Well, thank you for that, because inside, as you're talking, I am not artistic. And inside, my anxiety to think about doing this for myself is like, well, it would be a mess.
Yeah. Well, as someone who feels like I feel like I have to be perfect all the time, and I'm working on that. That's something I'm working on. My book journal really gives me the opportunity to say, you know what, this isn't my favorite page, or this isn't my favorite, but
Sure.
I can cut out another page and glue it on top of that and redo it if I want to.
That's a great
Or
point.
I can just not, I can leave that and just realize that this was not my best day, or keep it for the memory that it is. But I have used it, and I thought, well, nobody's going to look at that. This is just for me. But I've used it a lot because I have so many wonderful people in my world who are book people and will say, hey, what are you reading? And I can pull it out and be like, well, these are the things I have read.
Yeah.
And, and I can show them if I want to, or I can just kind of use it as a reflective piece of my own. And a lot of people are like you and have said, well, I'm not very artistic. And you don't have to make a book journal artistic. If you don't want to put a single thing but words on it, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
You can keep it more of a Bible, of a like a diary style, or you can expand upon it and make it into a work of art. It really is up to the reader and up to the journalist.
Yeah.
um,
Let's give listeners a little visual of because I loved it when we talked. You had mentioned, oh, I even use stickers sometimes too. And that brought my
mhm,
anxiety level down. I'm like, oh, well, I can color and I could add some
right,
stickers. Like,
right.
and that could be as simple as that.
So you want me to talk about my media madness, that
Yes.
I
Yeah.
have
Give us
all
some,
the
like, a
different things I
little,
use?
imagery on the page here.
All right. Well, I'll pretend I'm starting a page. So I've just finished a book. I sit down with the book. If I have it, if I have a handhold, I listen to different. I do have all kinds of different readings. So,
Sure.
and open the journal, and I usually shop for, in my stash, washi tape, which is tape with designs and patterns that you can pull on and off. Um, Stickers of any kind. I have a sticker collection because I'm a 13-year-old girl. I have I have a ton of ephemera, which is anything from old book pages, old magazine pages. I Mine tends to have a vintage touch to it, so I do love the old frayed books or the old yellowed pages, and I will use different things to make them look older or even burnt. I've
Sure.
actually burnt paper to make it look like that to put into my book. So ephemera, washi tape, stickers, pens of all sorts, and I use anything from like a micron ink pen to um, watercolor pens to crayons to art chalks to crayons, whatever you are in the mood for, whatever you want to do. Um, you really can use anything.
Yeah.
That There are times that I've been out with my husband and I saw an advertisement, like a little flyer for some sort of festival or something, but I love the artwork on it so much that I picked it up and cut it out and put it in my book journal.
That's
So
cool.
um, I've used old yearbooks. I found some old yearbooks at a thrift store that were just beyond repair. They were from the 1940s, but I was able to pull some pages out of it and take some of that, kids in the 1940s pictures, and I put that in my book journal. Um, you can use stamps, like rubber stamps. Basically, what it was for me is I'm a card maker too. So I
Okay.
took all of my card making supplies and said, all right, I'm going to use this in my book journaling too.
Yeah.
So it gives it a double purpose. It's not just something I use for one.
So do you have a certain journal that you like to do this in, like a certain type of journal or a size of a journal if people are wanting to get into this?
Um, I prefer the A5 size journal, and that's the standard.
Okay.
I think I had a B5 this year, and it was larger. And as much as I love the aesthetic of it, because it is nice and large, you can put lots of artwork on it, it almost comes a little bit overwhelming because
Yeah.
I feel like I have to fill the page and it's a lot. I really kind of prefer the smaller A5. Um, there are many brand names
Sure.
out there. I don't have one that I really prefer. As far as quality goes, it's just what you like. I like
Yeah.
something that has a thicker paper because I do use alcohol based markers on a lot of my lettering and things. the dot grid paper allows for you to keep it within the lines, but the lines are not so they're not so prevalent
Yeah.
there that it's distracting or
Okay.
it takes away from. I have done them before and stuck like a really dark, thick lined paper when I wanted something to be precise, or I've stamped
Sure.
lines on before. But dot grid paper is what I use, and what a few of the book journalers, other book journalists that I've seen, they use it too. And
Okay.
there's popular brands like Archer and Olive and Notebook Therapy. I've used both of those. I like them both. There's Lectern, Dingbats. I mean, there's a lot of them out
Okay.
there. You just have to, what your finances can, afford, because they can be, some books are $100, and that to me is a lot to have a notebook to write things in, and some of them you can find them for $10 or $15. So
Yeah.
really depending on, for people who are starting, I usually tell them you might want to start with an expensive one, because you don't know, and you're going to make mistakes,
Yeah. And like you said, it
Uh,
could be a venture that you realize it's just maybe this just isn't for me. And that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah, it's absolutely okay. I think people's biggest challenge with book journaling, honestly, is what you said, is I'm not artistic. I'm afraid I'm going to make mistakes. I feel like I have to turn it into art world or other people will see it. And if you can get over that hump, if you can get over and say, you know what, this is just for me.
Yeah.
This is my time to be creative. This is my time to enjoy the books that I'm reading. And if you can get over that, I think book journaling could be for anyone,
Okay.
artistic or not,
Yeah.
because you have to get over that hump. The hardest thing to do, honestly, is to write on your new book. The first thing you write on the new book is the hardest thing to do. Once you've done that, everything else is gravy. Yeah,
That's a really
because
good tip.
anytime spent being creative is not wasted.
Yeah.
That's not mine.
Yeah.
That is my philosophy.
So do you journal about every book you read?
Yes.
Okay. Because it's your way of
Yes.
tracking your books too.
Yes.
Okay.
It feeds that, because I do have this creative granola eating, headband wearing side of myself, this creative, free spirit, but I still have that teacher side of me that loves that data and tracking and all of that too. So it does give you the opportunity, and there are some very analytical ways to set up your book journal. I do mine a little bit more creative. Like you saw my bookshelf. I
Yeah.
create a bookshelf and decorate it and whatnot. And then all the books that I've read go in the bookshelf, and then they're color coded by month.
Yeah.
Um, that's how I kind of keep track, like a visual
Yeah.
tracker. But I've seen people that make charts and graphs, or they, make pie graphs, or there's so many things you can do. You just have to open your imagination to it. Like how do I want it to serve me?
Yeah.
Because really that's who it's about, is you.
Well, that is, I mean, you are opening my eyes this morning because obviously I've really only seen yours and I haven't gone down the rabbit trail of even researching book journaling, but I do love the idea because I think so often for me is I'll read books and I read obviously a lot and then
Mm-hmm.
I'll just put it in Goodreads just from the sense of like that way I know I can always go back and be like I did read it.
Right.
Um but I think with the book journaling, someone will ask me then 2 years after I read the book, oh, did you read this one? What did you think? And I'm like, I can't recall anything. I
Yeah.
rated it so many stars on Goodreads just to have it tracked, but I can't recall anything about the book outside of maybe like the genre potentially.
Yes.
And depending on how much I loved it, maybe I would really, remember because maybe I've been recommending it. But I think book journaling would help you because you're also then sitting down to process the story, what it meant to you, what you loved about it. I mean, all the things you would put in kind of a diary type edition of what you
Yeah.
loved about that book. Maybe it would help me with that memory.
Right. It would, a lot of people, something else that I've been asked a lot is, how do you come up with so much to write about it? Is it all your own thought? And I was like, I usually copy what the book says on the back, or
Yeah.
copy what Goodreads says, and then make my own couple of, it might be a sentence or two
Yeah.
that, I really loved the character development in this book. I felt like that she went from being, this kind of a person to that kind of person, and the author did a great job with that. Um, or I this book was a fun fluffy read, or this book reminded me of a whatever friend, or just kind of my own couple of sentences. When I read The Midnight Library by Maya Haig, I devoured the book. I absolutely loved it. I wrote more about I was inspired more to kind of delve into the feelings that I had, and how that, because it really
Yeah.
made me emotionally react. But then I read a cozy mystery, and I love cozy mysteries, are my favorite. But it was just like, it was a fun, good time. I
Yeah.
didn't have that emotional. So
Awakening.
I didn't have as much to write about it.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people also feel the pressure of, oh my God, I have to write a dissertation about every book that, I read. And it's like, no, it's not like that.
Yeah.
It's you can just write the summary. And sometimes when you write the summary, you get an inclination of, oh, that's what happened, or oh, this is how it sparked me. And then you can add your own notes, or you could write nothing if you want to write. And I know that's kind of, an oxymoron because it's a journal, but if you're more of an artsy
Yeah.
person and you just want to take the book, that you've read, and create a piece of art that inspired you from that book, then do that.
Visually. Yeah. Make a
There's no
visual.
rules.
Yeah.
There's no rules. Make a poster and put it in there, or whatever it is. It's a very good opportunity, just to, like you said, you have a memory of the books that you read. I've been journaling through Goodreads since 2012.
Yeah.
That's electronic book journaling. It really is, because you're
Sure.
rating. You can write a review if you like. And you're tagging it and marking it time read, and when you finished.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's just the book is more of a hard physical copy, and it gives you it gives that artistic and creative time, or whether you want to do that or not.
Yeah. I really like this. So if listeners are wanting to maybe see a example of your book journal, is it online? Can they go see
Yes.
this? Okay. Where can they
Yes.
find you? Can you tell us?
I am on Instagram, Sonia with an I. It's SONIAWITHANI.
Okay.
It's separated by the words.
Okay. And we'll have a link for that too in the show notes. So.
Yes. I also have, I'm a baby YouTuber. I just started in January. I've not really featured my book journal yet, just because I'm still kind of figuring out how to do videos, and doing like the above ASMR sort of like situation with books and stuff. I'm still
Sure.
trying to figure all of that out. But I do have a YouTube channel. It's the same name, Sonia with an I. I do talk about books too. So, if you're listening to this, I'm sure you're a book person.
Yeah.
I do book reviews and whatnot so far, but I do plan to start sharing my book journal as well.
Wonderful.
I'm hoping to grow it a little bit more. It's kind of maybe it's my niche or my passion, or whatnot, or what kind of, that's, my tag, I guess. Everybody has something about them, and the book journaling is where mine lie.
Yeah, and I love that, and I think there's room for everyone, right? And what you can bring, and like you said, there's so few people out there that are doing book journaling, so this is it.
Yes, it can be like your elementary book journaling, where you wrote your book and how you felt about it and all of that, or it can be this massive artwork. Or I love the flexibility in it. I'm not a person. I don't like boxes. I want people to be able to find what they want and what makes them feel good. And it doesn't have to be the same every time. Yesterday, I felt like being artsy. I did an artsy page. Today, I don't. I just want to get it finished. Okay, I'll write it down.
Yeah.
It should not be a chore. It should be something that's fun.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, keep it enjoyable.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, you've kind of already touched a little bit about who you are as a reader. You've mentioned that you love cozy mysteries, but what other genres do you enjoy to read?
I think I like a little bit of everything. I really do. I sort of kind of like a smattering of everything. Right now I usually read 4 books at a time.
Yeah.
I usually have one or two handhelds, an audio, and then an ebook going. That's kind of my circle. And I was joking with a friend of mine that I think I'm having an identity crisis this week because I'm not reading any cozy mysteries. Like I read a retro romance, Harlequin romance from 1973, which I'm not a romance reader. I'm not, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I think that I read every book in the library when I was in middle school, and every romance book in the library. I have always called them Harlequin romances.
I
The
love
little
it.
bitty, like, Sarah has a date, that sort of thing. And I felt like being a Gen Xer, and maybe I'm wrong in this, but being a Gen Xer, I felt like that the only kind of books that were really, gauged towards young girls and women were romance books.
Yeah.
And so, I devoured a ton of them. And I just, now as an adult, I just don't get the enjoyment out of them. So it's just not really my thing. Nothing wrong with romance. It's just not for me.
Yeah.
I do, a cozy mystery is my favorite. I love a great cozy mystery, but I also like, regular mysteries, or contemporary mystery. I love, women's fiction, contemporary. I like poetry. I love Mary Oliver. I a fantasy. I've not read any of the big popular fantasy books yet, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to. Right now, I'm currently reading an old favorite. I'm reading Dragons of Autumn Twilight, the Dragonlance series.
Okay.
I'm reading the first one. I've read it before, but it's been almost 20 years since I've read it, and I think I'm gonna pick this up again.
Yeah.
I'm not a big nonfiction reader. That's probably where it's just like when people start talking about nonfiction books, then I'm kind of like, yeah, I
Yeah.
just they're not really for me. Though I did read some nonfiction last year. I read Jenny McCarty's. I'm glad my mom's dead. I read that. I
Yeah. I
read,
was I was trying to think of the title too. I'm like, I can picture the cover, but the title
yeah,
is a
and I
little.
enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy what happened to her, of course, but I enjoyed the book. Um, but I have found that I think that we're supposed to evolve as readers. And this is my philosophy. I have very much evolved as a reader. I've had my romance, my romance era.
Yeah, I was just
And,
thinking that.
yeah. And I've had my nonfiction era where I was reading all about movie stars and musicians, and especially like old movie stars, like I'm still Taylor Swift, not Taylor Swift. I like Lucille Ball and Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn, and I read lots of biographies and autobiographies and whatnot. I read Betty White's autobiography last year, so I find that I still have things that I will go back to when I was in that era,
Sure.
but I'm sort of in my cozy mystery era now, I guess.
Yeah.
I was in a vampire era for a while.
It sounds like you really know what you like, and I think that that's the part of evolving as a reader is picking out what you like and then kind of sticking to that, like you said, maybe be in an era of that, but knowing that, okay, I'm going to try other things along the way too. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's really, I feel like as we get older, we have so much less time to do things. And
Agreed.
so knowing what you like to read so you can really hit the mark when you do have the time to read, I think is the most important part of, or maybe not the most important part, but of, the reading journey.
I agree. And in my own personal reading journey, sometimes that changes. Even might change in a couple of weeks. Like I said this week, the books that I'm reading, I wasn't reading a single cozy mystery. I started listening to one last night, but and I was feeling like I had an identity crisis
Yeah.
because I was like, oh wait, there's no small town, and
Yeah.
there's there's no, there all of the cozy mystery elements of like, oh, what, there hasn't been a murder, there's no small town, well, who am I?
Yeah.
But sometimes I think sometimes it's healthy to walk away from. I love to listen to people who are passionate about books, and there are times that people can be very passionate about books, and I think, I kind of want to feel that,
Yeah.
so I might pick up what they've read, and maybe I have a whole other reaction to it. I'm just like, okay,
Yeah.
that works, but there's been times like, I absolutely loved Legends and Lattes by Travis Waldry. Absolutely loved it. It's cozy fantasy. I'm like, oh, some of my favorite things put
Yep.
together. The whole reason I don't love fantasy is because there's always war and pestilence and end of the world and all of this, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's cozy. It's not all of those things. And I've talked about it so many times that I've had many people come back to me and say, I read that and I loved it and I never would have picked it up. And it was like, that's
Yes.
the time that you do that proverbial pat yourself on the back
The
sort of
best
thing, like,
feeling.
as a reader. Yeah, I
Yep.
got you. Mhm. I'm over here feeling like LeVar Burton making people read a book.
I love it.
Yeah. So, and that was Reading Rainbow was one of my favorite shows when I was younger. So, I've always loved talking about books and anything to do with books.
Yeah.
And it really comes from being raised by readers.
Yeah.
You know, I grew up when I was really young. My parents got divorced when I was 7. But when I was really young, we lived in poverty. There were times
Okay.
that we didn't have electricity. There were times
Wow.
that we didn't have any, and I didn't grow up in pioneer ages. That's not normal. I thought that was normal as a kid, because when
Yeah.
you grow up in poverty, you think that's a norm. And but books were always available.
Yeah.
So we may not have electricity, we may not have the television, and I didn't have a gaming system or anything like that. It wasn't a priority. When you live in a certain financial state, things become priority, things like food,
Yeah.
and whatnot. So, but my mom was a reader. I remember being very, very young, probably before I was even in school, and she read The Hobbit to me.
Wow.
My mom was a reader. My granny was a reader, and I was raised by my granny. So my granny was a reader. My father was a reader, even though he wasn't in my life very big amount of time. He was a reader. My grandfather was a reader. He read the old Western, the Zane Grey Western.
Yep.
He had them stacked floor to ceiling in his house. So I think being raised by readers was kind of like osmosis. I mean, how can I not be a reader?
Yeah. Well, and they
And
talk about leading by example, right? And I think the same thing, even in my world with my kids, right? Of like, I'd rather them see me reading my book than reading my phone. Is like a lot of, it's so easy to pick up the phone and scroll through, but
oh
like,
yeah.
what do I want my kids to see if they're around when I have a free moment of time? And so I'm really trying, it's like the forcing myself to go sit on the couch and read the book versus take the phone with me. Like that stays over there. So there's not
Right.
even the temptation of that.
I've had a conversation with parents at parent teacher conferences many times. They'll be so frustrated and saying, well, my child doesn't read. My child doesn't read. And my next question was always, do they see you reading? Well, no, I don't read.
Yeah. Yeah.
If school is only a very small amount of their life, in parents who are the first teachers, if you're not reading, you're not showing that it's important. And they lots of light bulb moments, and you know maybe try to find a way that where find something. I believe everybody loves to read. I just think they haven't found the right book.
I am agree with you there.
They just haven't found the right book or the right media or the right way to read a book,
Yeah.
because many people, either attention or cicadas of the eye, whatever it might be, when they're reading a book, if they're reading a handheld book, they can't grasp or get what they need out of it. But maybe if they had an audio book, like they're auditory learners,
Yeah.
they would like it more. you know if you can watch a movie for 2 hours, you can probably read a book.
You have been so gracious to prepare a book flight for us today. Can you tell a little bit about how they pair together?
Well, when you said asked to put a book flight together, I was like, oh, immediately the teacher's trying to be prepared. So I kind of looked at all of the books that I love and tried to find something that would tie them all together, and it not being a genre.
Yeah.
So I chose anthropomorphic books that allow animals to act like people. And it started and it started with my favorite book of all time. And even though I said we should evolve as readers and your favorite books may change, and that's absolutely okay,
Yeah.
I will say that Watership Down has been my favorite book since I was 15 years old.
I
So
love this.
that was the first one I chose. And I said, okay, and people hear me yammer on about Watership Down all the time, but I don't feel like it gets enough attention,
Yeah.
especially in the world of, you know, it has some societal commentary without being a societal commentary book.
Yeah.
The author has said many times in interviews that he did not write it. He wrote it as a children's book. It is a dedication to his children. Now it's a tome for a child,
Yeah.
but the book was meant to be just a book about rabbits in his eyes. But when you read it, I think it's really hard to see that it doesn't have some chance to, or some ties to society. Would you like me to talk about Watership Down a little bit
Yeah,
more?
why not? I'm actually reading this right now. I think
Are
I
you
kind of
currently reading
mentioned
it?
that, yes,
Oh,
my best friend and I, we have been friends since middle school, and this was assigned middle school reading. And admittedly, I don't think I actually read it in middle school. Now, don't listeners out there, I'm a rule follower by nature. I probably read most of the other assigned reading, but for some reason that book, I want to say it was like sixth grade we were to read that. It was so over my head. I could not, like, I just couldn't get into the story because I think I wasn't there as a reader yet. Does that make
it's so
sense?
almost 500 pages. If I looked at this as a middle schooler, I would say, "What?"
Yeah.
I mean, it's a tome. It's not. This is not
Yeah.
a light book.
So we decided to revisit as a buddy read and really give it its true, what it deserves since neither of us really got much out of it in middle school. So
It's just the tale itself is such a it's about survival um and being a hero and being a friend and found family and all the things that I love in a book, plus an epic adventure.
yeah.
I hear I hear Bilbo in my head going on an adventure. That when I can do that in a book, it's incredible. And the story is about Hazel and his warren of rabbits, and they have to move from their warren that they've lived in all of their lives because humans are coming in and they're developing.
Okay.
So it has that environmental talk in there about how, when we take land and we develop it, and it's not, we're not the only ones affected,
Yeah.
but they have to move their warren, and they're trying desperately to find, and they're going, they're traveling through this countryside, and going bumping into other warrens, and some are friendly and some are not, and how some of those warrens deal with humans and whatnot. And Hazel is sort of the leader of this group, and he has a little brother named Fiver, and there are other very known characters, very, very lovable characters, but there's some that are not likable. And I think that speaks to humanity as well.
Yeah.
My very favorite, and this is not a direct quote because I'm not really good about remembering direct quotes, but Fiver asks the question, and Fiver is that little brother kind of character, and he has this very philosophical question. He said, wouldn't it be wonderful if warrens could work with other warrens, and then we could get together and unify as rabbits instead of warring? And I was like,
Yeah.
wouldn't it just, it gives me goosebumps to even talk about it. I was like, wouldn't it be great if humanity could do that?
Yeah.
I would like to go through here. I love to do like tabbing, and I would love to go through here and just tab how many times that I think that there is a correlation between this book and lessons in humanity.
Yeah. And I
So
imagine as a father writing this for his kids, there is some sense. I mean, he even says in the beginning of the book, right, that this started as what he would like was bedtime stories. He would be
yeah.
verbally telling these bedtime stories,
Mm.
and then it morphed into him writing this book. But I imagine when you're doing that, you are trying to impart knowledge, life lessons, things about
Yes.
humanity, like you're saying, you're trying to impart that to your children
Yes.
as you're
Yes.
doing that. And so
Right.
with it still being solidly a children's book, you're kind of hinting at these
Mhm.
messages along
Right.
the way.
Kind of like oh, like a fable, or how they teach little messages, like little folk tales and fables that teach
Yeah.
messages about different things. Yeah, and it's funny, as much as I've worked with kids, I didn't really think of it that way. I was just thinking of, maybe he's kind of writing something that is based on humanity, with because sometimes we accidentally do things like that when not meaning
Yeah.
to make it like a prolific sort of thing. But yeah, I agree. These little lessons of humanity. And I mean, even they talk about the human having a fire stick, and it's a cigarette, and how disgusting they smell and whatever, and it's like, well, he doesn't want his kids
Yeah.
to smoke. And keeping wild things tame, like there's some tame rabbits, and they free the tame rabbits, and how the tame rabbits are just there's I could talk about it all day. So
Yeah.
there's so many different little lessons in this. And then also, probably one of my favorites is how dealing with grief, because there is death in this. Some of the rabbits do die. There are moments that I as a reader, I tear up. It kind of breaks my heart. It, for a book about rabbits to make me feel like it does, it's why it's my favorite.
Yeah.
Because it's a
It's
book about
amazing.
rabbits.
It's amazing what they can do.
Yeah, tears my heart out sometimes. But it's like, but it also brings me joy too. Some of the in the descriptions, I love English, anything English countryside, and the descriptions of the beautiful earth and all of that.
Yeah.
Really, it kind of ticks all the buttons for me. So it's
Okay.
definitely a favorite of mine.
Well, maybe today we're inspiring other listeners to pick this up and get the love it deserves.
Yeah. Yeah. I really embarrassed myself one time at a church book sale, because I found the first edition hardcover with the sleeve intact. Looked like, yeah, and it was written in 1974, which is the same. I think it was 74, it might be 75. I'm starting to say that's the same year I was born, and that's quite a long time ago. So yeah, I did a little dance and did a little hop and a little scream, and I got it for a whole buck, and I was like, yes. Well,
But
book
that
people
is
will
joy.
understand.
That is
Yes.
joy right there. Yep.
Book people will get it. Other
Well,
people will be like, this woman's crazy.
yes, exactly. Well, that was Watership Down by Richard Adams. What is the next book that you brought today?
Shady Hollow by Juno Black.
Okay.
Shady Hollow is a murder mystery, but it involves animals. And it starts with there's a reporter who is a fox. Her name is Vera Vixen, which is so cute.
Love it.
And she is this news reporter, and she catches wind that there's this death, and it might be murder. The town curmudgeon, who's a toad, is murdered. And she's getting to the bottom of this no matter where it leads, and she continues to kind of expose little facts and learn things about her little community or little town, Shady Hollow.
Okay.
And as she is investigating, she's finding more and more secrets. And but Vera is cunning, and she's just like a fox. She's cunning and she's hardworking, and she, of course, will solve the mystery. And this is a series.
Okay.
There are 7, I think, in the series. I love this because it is, first of all, her best friend is a raven named Lenore, and she owns a bookshop.
Okay.
And there is Joe Muggs, which is a coffee shop, and it's owned by a moose. And the police chief is a bear. And so it's all kinds of animals that just live in this community. So it has that Zootopia kind of feel almost.
Yeah.
But it gives me like I when I was talking about it, it's kind of like, to me, the Get Along Gang, which I'm aging myself again, but if you're an 80s kid, you know who the Get Along Gang is. It's like Jessica Fletcher meets the Get Along Gang. And
Okay.
I love that. I love that even exists. It's whimsical. It kind of, when you read it, you sort of feel like you're reading a storybook as a child, but
Yeah.
it's written for an adult. It's very it's very addictive. I sat down and read this in no time and then just kind of went through the rest of the books. There's three books and no, it's four books and two novellas.
Okay.
And it's just a really good read. It's a combination. The authors are a combination of two people
Oh,
who
okay.
created Juno Black.
Oh,
And
that's
I think
cool.
they're both independent authors that write
Okay.
their own books. But I always suggest this for people, and people will look at the front of it, and your listeners can't see, but it's very whimsical.
I
And they'll
when you were
say,
holding it up, I was like, "Oh, I love that cover." I'm drawn in.
yeah, a lot of people will look at it and be like, I don't know, I don't really want to read about animals, and they read it, and they're like, oh my gosh, it's so good,
Yeah.
But you have to have, I mean, the animals are cute and whatnot, but the you have to have the all the elements of a good story. You have to have
Sure.
character development. You have to have interest. You have to have rise and fall. All of that. And this has it. The front of the book says "Watership Down meets Mickey Spillane." So I mean, how can I not read?
Oh. Is that what drew you to it when you first found it?
I'll be honest. The cover is what
Okay.
drew me to it. I
It
saw the
is
cover and
pretty.
said, "Oh my god, that's so cute!" And then I
Yeah.
picked it up and I was like, "This does not have animals, too. This does not." And I
Yeah.
was reading it. I did the readability test that I taught my students how to do, but it's
Okay.
funny, as an adult I do it. I picked three spots in the book and read a couple sentences to see if it was something I would want to read, and I was like,
I didn't know
it's
this
random.
test.
Oh yeah, it's and I taught third grade,
Okay.
and I when my students would shop for books in the library or whatnot, and to avoid them getting books that were not right fit books, they were too easy or too hard,
Yeah.
I would have them take the book and just open to a random page, read a sentence. Does it feel like a right fit book? Is it something you're interested in? Is it easy to read but not too easy? And do you know the words? If
Yeah.
you know less than three words, well, I don't need to do that. But what I do for myself is,
Yeah.
I'll read a couple of sentences and go, okay, and just go through. And I was like, all right, I think I would like this. And I instantly, it
Yeah.
has a map of the town, which
Mm.
gives all of my Hobbit vibes just tingle, because I love a map.
Yep.
I love a map of a town. So it has a map of a town, and it has like a cast of characters list. And I was like, oh, sold.
Yep.
I sold.
Coming home with
I will,
me.
yes, this will be my new book. And like I said, I devoured them. I absolutely love them. I think they're genius. And it's
Okay.
unique. It's a unique preface. You don't see it very often.
Yeah.
You
And
see
I
it in
love your
children's
word
books.
whimsical. Like for
It is so
adults.
whimsical.
Whimsical for adults because like you said,
Yes.
we don't see that often either. So,
No, no, and you can't. It's a murder mystery. It's a cozy murder mystery, but it's a murder mystery. So there is the serious of that, but there's also, her going to have coffee at Joe Muggs and talking to the moose about what's going on. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It allows your imagination to just kind of soar. And I think adults, especially as adults, we're so realistic. Everything has to be
Mhm.
realism. Everything has to be the real. And it's just like we've kind of forgotten how to
Yeah.
scoop up that inner child sometimes. And I think it's necessary.
Yeah.
We live in a stressful world. We need to be able to pull out our inner child sometimes, and have some whimsy and play. And,
Yeah.
this book did that for me. It was like, okay, sold. That one's,
Okay. All right. Well, that was
yeah.
Shady Hollow by Juno Black. And then what's the next book you brought today?
The Cottage Tales of Beatrix Potter
Okay.
by Susan Whitting Albert.
Okay. I haven't heard of
It,
this.
oh, it's an older series, actually, and
Okay.
Susan Whitting Albert and it's in the cozy mystery vein. Um, Susan Whitting Albert has a lot of series that are cozy mystery series, but this is her only one that focuses on the Beatrix Potter aspect, but it also
Okay.
allows the animals to have voices and solve mysteries. So it takes place in the early 1900s. Beatrix Potter is the main character.
Okay.
She is not, she isn't the one who wrote the book. She's a character in the book, and it revolves around when Beatrix Potter bought Hilltop Farm in Little Sussex, and it mysteries happen, and they're not always murder. Like, there's in one of the books, there's a missing child. Like, a child is left on a doorstep, and they're trying to figure out whose child this is and where it
Oh,
came from.
okay.
Um, in another one, there's a false marriage. Like one of the town community members gets married, but the woman is kind of shady, and people are trying to figure out what's going on with that. There's a couple of deaths in them. There's a few of them that do revolve around death, but I'm on book 5, and I savor these because I just discovered them last year, and I try to read them in the season. So I
Yeah.
just finished the 5th one because it was wintry, and the next one's spring. So I'm going to wait till spring to read it. I'm a mood
Okay.
reader, by the way. Mood readers unite. I do not have a TBR. I do not have a list that I have to read. I read what I'm in the mood for.
Yeah.
So, but she there's parts of it where she is talking, like you can hear her voice in her head. It's third person, so it's not told in first person, but she is, interacting with the people in the community, like the local baker and the lawyer in town and all of that, and she's interacting with those people. And then the next chapter will go, and then we'll talk about the badger in his little badger hotel where all the animals stay, and the animals will talk about, well, did you see what happened, and Miss Potter is doing this, and so they have their conversations too. And
Okay.
usually the animals solve the mystery, but they'll set up the people so the people will figure it out.
Okay.
So and a lot of the animals that are featured in this book are the same animals that she featured in her children's books.
Oh, fun.
So
Okay.
yeah, so you have like Jemima Puddle Duck, and you have Ginger and I can't think of the dog, Ginger and Pickles, the
Yep.
dog and the cat. So I love Beatrix Potter as an elementary teacher. I love Beatrix Potter anyway. I loved her as a child, but this just kind of took it and put it into an adult schema, and then just allowed me to run with it. They're
Okay.
so they're very cottage core. So if you love the cottage core feel of, like the tea and the biscuits and the English countryside and all of that, it's very that too. But it really is a good mystery. And
Cool.
Susan Winning Albert is a phenomenal writer.
Okay.
The story is also very conversational. So as you're reading it, it's like she's talking. She'll say, "Now, I know you as the reader remember what the badger said about this, but Miss Potter hasn't discovered that yet." So
Okay.
she will. It's a conversational
She's
style,
almost
and I
like narrating it a little bit behind the scenes.
yeah, she's kind of like yes, behind the scenes, like above looking at everything and then trying to get everything to tie in together, which it does lovely at the end. So
Yeah.
yes, that's my third one.
Okay. All right. And then you also brought us a dessert pairing today as well.
This is definitely a delightful dessert, and this one is also a cozy mystery. I did 3 cozy mysteries and one just fiction. So this is the Mountain Lodge series by Diane Kelly, and it features the main character is a woman who is just recently divorced,
Okay.
and she's in her 40s. She has children who are older. They don't live at home anymore, and she decides to take her divorce settlement. It was very amicable. They just realized that after raising children and living together for the time that they did, that they just wanted to go different directions.
Sure.
And she goes and buys this mid-century mountain lodge that needs a little love, and she restores it, and she runs the mountain lodge, and there's people coming in and out, so it's great for cozy mystery because you have people booking, and then the murder ensues.
Okay.
The reason that I chose this one, the anthropomorphic part of that is very, very small, but it's very, very unique, and I loved it. Is she has a cat whose name is Yeti. She's a white fluffy cat, and Yeti has her own chapters in the book.
Oh, that's
So
fun.
the story will be told in the point of view of the protagonist, and then the next chapter will be kind of a smaller chapter, but it will be, oh, I was just sitting in front of the window. Yeah, there's birds today. I saw
Okay.
a really funny shape behind the barn. I wonder what that is. Oh, I wish that woman would wake up and feed me. It's from the point of view of a cat,
Yes.
and it's so cute. It makes me laugh, but it's also, there's little tidbits of the mystery in her observations.
Okay. So you got to pay
So like,
attention to it too. It's not just like a
yeah,
throwaway chapter.
it's not
Okay.
fluff.
Yeah.
It's not just a fluff piece. Yeti will tell you, oh, I saw somebody behind the barn. There was a dark shape behind the barn, but I'm unbothered. I need another nap or whatever. She's
Sure.
a cat. She cares. She's a cat. And so that I just discovered this one too. And speaking of Diane Kelly, I actually got to meet her in October. And when we were talking about book journaling, I'm going to tie it all in here.
Yeah.
Another great way to use your book journal is when you go to author signings, have them sign your book journal. Then you have a whole book
Such a great
of
idea.
the authors that you've met. And she signed my book journal, and she's like, you don't understand what a compliment this is to me, like as an author. She was just thrilled, like elated.
Yeah.
I had one author tear up that saw it. She was like, I just can't believe that something that I did inspired you to do this,
Yeah. And
And
how
I'm
much
no-
it
I'm no
meant to
artist.
them. I mean, this is like, I imagine these are like their babies, right? That are out in the
Yeah.
world. And so for them to
Yes.
see how much it meant to their readers is really
Yes.
special. How I love to end our show here is with our bonus pairings. And these are just a speed round of questions. So you can answer these really quick. Are you a rereader?
Not usually.
Okay. All right. Where is your favorite place to read?
Anywhere outdoors, near running water.
Okay.
So, an ocean, a beach. I live feet from the Missouri River, so I will go down to the river and read, or an outdoor coffee shop.
Okay. All right. And then what is one book you've read that has changed your life?
Oh, that's the hardest question ever. Depending on which way it changed my life. I think I'm going to go fun, since this has been kind of whimsical. I
Okay.
think I'll pick a whimsical one, because I have some that are serious too that really changed my life. I'd say The Hobbit by J.R. Tolkien.
Okay. What are you reading right now?
I am currently reading Dragons of Autumn Twilight by
Okay.
Margaret Weiss Brown, and I can't think of the other author, and I apologize for that. I am also reading Flipped for Murder by Maddie Day,
Okay.
which is a cozy mystery. That's what I'm listening to. My other handheld book that I'm reading is Getting Old is Murder by Rita Lincoln.
Okay.
Rinkin.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for this today. It has been absolutely delightful to talk to you, and I appreciate you being here today.
Well, thank you, Kara. I appreciate you too.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode with Sonia Moore and her book flight of anthropomorphic books. We'd love to hear what other books you'd pair at bookishflights.com. We also have something new where you can leave us a voicemail on Speakpipe. We'd love to hear from you what books you've loved from the show, what episodes have been your favorite, or a guest that you've loved hearing from. You can head on over to www.speakpipe.com/bookishflights. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.